What's up, everybody? It is your boy Baddog here with another New York Giants video. And in this one, we're going to do something a little different. Yesterday, I reacted to the Brian Daboll minicamp press conference. And like I said, this year, I'm going to be doing that a lot. We'll be reacting to the post-game conference the day after every game. I do my post-game videos as normal. And then the next day, I'll react to, Coach Daboll's post-game press conference. But, it's funny when I was looking at stuff, Joe Judge's opening press conference just happened to pop up. And I was like, it'd be a good time. It'd be fun to, I don't know if it'd be fun, but and I mentioned Joe Judge yesterday because Brian Daboll mentioned fundamentals a couple times. And I was like, let me go back and react to this. Joe Judge obviously fooled me. After 2020, I really thought he might have been the man to turn this team around. And holy cow, was I wrong about that one? But I was really sold on his opening press conference, and I really don't remember exactly what he said because it was 3 years ago. So let's follow with it and see how I react to it. Now, let's listen to what he said, and let's listen to what happened. And without further ado, here we go.
First, I'd like to start by thanking the mayor and the Tisch families, Mr. Gettleman, Kevin Abrams, for this wonderful opportunity. I do not
thank God we don't have to worry about Mr. Gettleman or Kevin Abrams anymore.
Take lightly the position I'm in and the people, the city, and the region that I represent.
Look at how young Joe Judge looked. And then look at the difference 2 years in New York made on this guy. He aged like 20 years in 2 years.
Okay. I'd like to thank my family, my wife, my mother, my children, all my close friends who have made each step of this process to enable me to be where I am today, which is
he's always very well-spoken guy, very well-dressed guy.
Just another step in the process of where we're trying to go. I'd like to thank all my former coaches that I both played and worked under for building in me the foundation of fundamentals.
Hey, if you're counting along at home, let's count how many times. I don't have a fundamental counter, but let's just ballpark it. Count in your head or write it down on a piece of paper. And at the end of if you stay with it this long, because this is going to be a long video, write down how many times he uses the word fundamentals. I'll do it with you.
Allowed me to teach and instruct at a high level to, again, put me in this position. I'd like to start with Coach Belichick and Coach Saban, Coach Scotty O'Brien, Coach Amos Jones, Coach Sylvester Kroom, Coach Jackie Sherrill, and Coach Jim Algio. All right, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank my own father, who was my first coach and taught me the most important lesson is you hold those you expect the most from at the highest standard. All right.
All right, so I expected a lot out of Joe Judge, and I held him to a high standard. No question about that. Of course, you thought the Belichick and Saban ties would make this guy a really good head coach. And maybe Joe Judge will be a good head coach at some point. He certainly wasn't ready to be one at this point in his career, and definitely not in New York.
Now, I'd also like to thank all the players who ever played under me. They gave everything. That's what I expect. I was very demanding. I'm going to continue to be demanding. But you expect the players to be held to a certain standard.
And we expected the coaches to be held to a certain standard. So I guess when you're a coach and you hold players to a certain standard and you don't uphold that standard yourself, it's probably why the players didn't play as hard for Joe Judge as you thought they might have.
And for all the ones who have played under me to this point, I appreciate your work and your sacrifice to allow me to have this opportunity that I have today. And it's just an opportunity. I have to make the most of it.
That he did not do.
That starts today. Now, there's a question out there I'm sure a lot of people are asking. That's number one, who am I? Well, maybe I can explain that a little bit better, but instead of saying who am I, by telling you what's relevant in this conversation with being a coach of the New York Giants, what I'm about. And what I'm about is an old school physical mentality, okay? We're going to put a product on the field that the people of this city and region will be proud of because this team will represent this area.
And I don't think the area would want to be represented by the team Joe Judge put there out in the field. Now, it wasn't just Joe Judge's fault. That was also a lot to do with Dave Gettleman. But you saw a talented Gettleman draft that obviously became a lot better under Coach Daboll than it did Joe Judge. Especially Daniel Jones.
Play fast. We'll play downhill. We'll play aggressive. We'll punch you in the nose for 60 minutes.
Yeah, see, that line got me good. Play aggressive. This man says we're going to play aggressive. This is the same dude that ran back-to-back quarterback sneaks on 2nd down and 11 and 3rd and 9 from his own 5-yard line. Remember that. And remember how many times he punted. I remember a 4th and 3 at the Falcons' 39-yard line. We punted. There was nothing aggressive about Joe Judge's game plans at all.
He'll play every play like it has a history and a life of its own with a relentless competitive attitude.
Because again, man, this is the type of thing I wanted to hear as a fan, and unfortunately, it just never came to fruition on the field.
We'll play fundamentally sound.
Fundamentals, guys, write it down and take a drink every time he says fundamentals, and we'll see if you're standing by the end of the video.
Not beat ourselves. That is our mission right here.
Right here. How many times you guys? We're going to do that right here, right there, right there, right there, right there. Fundamentals, right there, right there.
Okay. I'm about caring for the players in the locker room.
I don't know if that ever happened. Of course, I don't know what happened in the locker room.
Let's not forget there's a human element to this game. Let's not think that in professional sports that paying a paycheck to somebody makes it absent of empathy. We need to make sure that we take care of the players in our locker room, that we treat them the right way, that we teach them the correct techniques, and that we put them in the right situation to be successful.
That he did not do. He's right. There's an empathy part. Like, I'm sure Joe Judge is a great freaking guy. He just wasn't a great coach.
We're going to ask these men to come in and give everything they have every day. We're going to demand it.
Well, you probably shouldn't demand it. And maybe that was the problem.
And we appreciate everything they give us. It's our responsibility to take care of them on a daily basis and make sure when they are done with our game, they are better furthered for the rest of their career as a father, a husband, and a professional, whatever avenue they take.
Yeah. I don't know how much of that happened.
Now, what this team's going to look like.
Here we go. This ought to be interesting.
I mentioned earlier, I want this team to reflect this area. I want the people that pay their hard-earned money in the neighborhoods of New York, North Jersey, South Jersey to come to our games and note the players on the field play with the same attitude they wake up with every morning.
So back-to-back quarterback sneaks, punting the ball, 3-yard outs, draws on 3rd and 30.
That is blue collar. It's hard work. It's in your face. We're not going to back down from anybody.
Again, back-to-back quarterback sneaks and punting the ball a lot of times on 4th and 1 and 4th and 2. This was a complete farce. He did the complete opposite.
We're going to come to work every day and grind it out the way they do in their jobs every day. And they can invest their money in our program knowing it's worthwhile. They put a Giants uniform on. They put a Giants hat or jersey on, that it's not representing just the 53 on the field, but it's representing their neighborhoods, their communities, and their families with the values they have instilled in their children.
I hope not, because, again, Joe Judge, great snake oil salesman. I bought that snake oil from this guy.
Now, at this moment, my priorities are pretty simple. I have an outsider's view of this team. I've competed against the Giants. I've studied this team from the outside looking in, preparing myself for this job and opportunity. But I have to make myself fluent in a language within the building. I have to study the players. I have to evaluate the current coaching staff and give everybody a fair evaluation to make sure we make the right decisions, that I have a clear vision of what the path going forward needs to be.
See, I don't think they ever did know what the hell they wanted to do going forward. I mean, constant changes, bickering, arguments, players out of position, poor techniques taught, and again, a very passive mentality when it came to playing football.
To help these players progress the correct way.
And he didn't. As a matter of fact, we all saw Daniel Jones regress under Coach Judge and progress under Coach Dable in one season.
Relative to staff, I do not have a staff in place. Yes, I have some names in mind, but we will talk to everybody. We will take our time. My priority is to put the right men around these players that they can come to work every day. They can be coached hard. They can be taught. I want good people.
I don't know if I can blame Joe Judge for that, his coaching staff. I really don't know if he's the one that chose that or if Merritt chose that. So I'll let him slide on that. I don't think Jason Garrett was this guy's first choice.
Before anything, if you're going to work in an organization, you're a good person. I don't want any alternative agendas.
Well, I'm sure Jason Garrett's a good person.
I'm making that clear right now.
Well, Colombo must not have been because he got in a fight with him.
There's not going to be a coach in our organization who has nothing but the best interest of the players at hand and isn't going to come to work every day and put their butt on the line for the guys who are going to work hard for them. All right? And I want teachers, not presenters. I don't want someone who looks fancy in front of a screen and can sell you with a lot of different sales lines. I want...
Wow. I know. Hey, well, boy, Joe, that was pretty good. Sell you with a lot of sales lines. That's exactly what you did. You sold me. I can't speak for the Giants fan base. You sold me a lot of sales lines.
Teachers. I want old school people who can get to our players and give them the mental image of what it's supposed to look like. And I want them to demonstrate on a daily basis the work ethic of what it's going to take to do it successfully day in and day out. Because over the course of 6 months of this season, it takes day in and day out to be successful. The margins of error in this league are too small. You cannot get by with some kind of magic scheme or new gimmick or think you've reinvented the wheel.
Well, you can't also play 3 yards in a cloud of dust and play like it was the 80s either. You had to implement some kind of new formulas or new play calling or something creative.
The same things win football games that have always won football games. It's fun.
That's true. Fundamentals, write it down.
Fundamentals.
That's true. Fundamentals did, that does win football games. The Giants did not produce any fundamentals under Joe Judge.
And those fundamentals will start for us in the classroom. They'll start with being at meetings on time. They'll start with being on the field on time in the proper dress. They'll start with knowing your playbook. They'll start with being out there and stretching the right way and warming your body up the right way that you prevent any kind of soft tissue injuries on the field.
Good God, how many soft tissue injuries did we have on the field? How many players got hurt? I'm not blaming Joe Judge for that, but it's just ironic that he says that we led the league in injuries.
And then they carry over to the fundamentals on the field.
Here's another fundamentals. Count along with me. I got 4 so far.
It's running, it's tackling, it's ball security. Okay. It's a contact sport. You can't get around that. It's meant to be a physical game. It's for tough people. We will practice with a physical attitude. We will practice in pads. We will practice live tackling. Not to make a statement that we're trying to be tough. We're going to practice live tackling because I believe in doing it safely.
I don't know how you could practice live tackling doing it safely. I don't know. I don't understand that line. I understood. Hey, let's practice in pads. Let's, make these guys tough. I get it. Get ready for some game, but you can't. How are you going to do it safely? You just said it's a contact sport.
You want to make your players safer? You start by instructing them how to do it.
You can't instruct somebody how to tackle safely. You tackle, you don't. It's a contact sport. It's a physical sport. People are going to get hurt in the sport. You can't tell them, don't tackle this way, don't tackle that way. I think a lot of the NFL rules actually hurt the players because they don't know where you can tackle the guy because they have all these rules about tackling players.
And we're going to work on everything we do and everything we ask them to do at full speed on Sunday at a competitive level. We're going to make sure that we have practiced, corrected, and re-practiced before they have to do it at a live pace. Okay? There's not going to be shortcuts what we have to do. It's a tough division. It's a tough division in cities.
It certainly wasn't in 2020.
Cities full of tough people.
The division was won by the 7-9 Redskins at the time, or Washington football team, whatever the hell they were called.
And they expect to see a program. They expect to see a product that represents them. And I'm going to do everything in my power every day to make sure the people of this city and this area turn on the TV or sit in the stadium seats and are proud to say that we're their New York Giants.
Well, that definitely didn't happen. By the end of 2021, I was playing clown music and using a roll of toilet paper as his playbook.
All right. Now, from this point forward, any questions you may have, I'll be happy to answer to the best of my ability.
The former players are having flashbacks over there.
Sure.
Bruce Beck, WNBC TV. Welcome.
Thank you.
You said yesterday in a statement, we've had great conversations about where this team is and where it is headed and how we are going to get there. My question is, how are you going to get there?
Well, exactly what I just said a second ago. We're going to start by showing up on time, by having a plan.
Do you not listen, sir? Do you not practice fundamentals? That was my parody press conference.
For executing that plan. It's going to be fundamentals.
Another fundamentals. Write it down, guys. I got 5 so far.
I'll tell you this right now, and I'm sure this is going to come up somewhere along the line. I'm not
counting right now, right here, right there, but the fundamentals thing's pretty funny. Oops.
going to be the offense coordinator, the defense coordinator, or the special teams coordinator. I'll work with all 3 sides of the ball. But the primary focus I'm going to have as a head coach is I'm going to make sure we are fundamentally sound.
Another one.
We're situationally aware, and that we play with relentless effort.
Joe, Matt Lombardo from NJ.com. I'm curious in your conversations with Dave Gettleman, the conversation about personnel, your input, his input, and how that relationship is going to work as you build this team.
I couldn't be more excited walking on the interview than sitting down with Mr. Gettleman. It's been tremendous. You know, listen, from a scout's view, from a coach's view, and one thing I've been privileged to do is my role in New England when I first went there was heavy on personnel. Being a special teams coach, you have to know every player on your team inside and out, because you have to know who you can use with a limited menu. It's kind of like when you're hungry, you go to the fridge and your dad says, figure out a way to make a sandwich. You know what's in there, but you got to find a way because you got to eat, right? So I got to know what everybody does so I can put those ingredients together and get the most out of it. So,
which sounded good, you know, in theory, but certainly never, again, it never translated onto the field. These guys never seemed to have a plan when things were thrown awry, when he had to go make that sandwich.
What I prepared myself for was leading into every draft. I studied every player in the draft as a player and an athlete. I didn't look at him as a receiver. I didn't look at him as a tight end. I didn't look at him as a linebacker. I want to know how they moved. Are they stiff in the hips? Are they a straight line speed guy? Do they use their hands? What kind of short area quickness do they have? What kind of top end speed do they have? Do they turn down contact? So I'm used to looking at things from a big picture perspective.
I can't imagine that he looked at every play. You had not enough hours in the day to look at every player in the draft.
Players in terms of what they bring to the team as a whole. You can turn around and say, how good is this guy as a running back? Well, there's different kinds of running backs. I want to know what kind of athlete this man is and how we can use his tool set to our advantage.
Joe, Ryan Dunleavy from the New York Post. You're out from obviously an outside perspective, your first impression of Daniel Jones from his rookie season, and then for his offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, what are you looking for from a coaching perspective?
So I'm going to answer both those questions, and I don't want to be confused with this. I want to make sure I make this clear. Is again, I have an outsider's perspective. We have a lot of talent on this roster. It's been assembled that way for a reason. I don't want to sit here and try to give you expert analysis without having done my due diligence and homework to sit down and thoroughly investigate each one of these players.
In layman's terms, I got to look at the tape. I got to go look at the tape. I got to look at the tape.
They all have ability. I'm excited to work with every player on our roster. Every player on our roster has talent, and every player on our roster will compete for whatever they get. Nothing will be handed out. In terms of the coaches, again, I want to reference back to I'm looking for teachers. Okay. I'm sure the next question is going to be something relative to what do I look for in the offensive system? Well, I can answer that of all three systems. Offense.
I like how he asked his own question.
Defense, special teams. Our philosophy is going to be to put pressure on the opponent to prepare for multiple things. Within that, we have to have personnel versatility.
I guarantee you Washington was not prepared for back-to-back quarterback sneaks on second and third down inside the 5.
And we have to have flexibility schematically to make sure that whoever we play, we can adjust our game plan to maximize our strengths versus their weaknesses. So while there may be some games that we throw the ball 50 times, there's going to be other times we may throw it 10 times.
See, that I liked that answer, because to me that was saying we're going to do what, our opponent's weaknesses. We're going to attack the weakness. And again, that just never happened.
And run the ball 45 times. So,
but I did like that answer a lot. That was definitely one of the key things. A lot of this was word salad, but that answer there was definitely one of the things that got me going, like, okay, he's not going to just do the same thing every week in and week out. He's going to change his game plan depending on the opponent.
I don't have a crystal ball. Miss Cleo could help you better with that, but we're going to look for the best system to help us week.
Miss Cleo might have been a better coach than Joe Judge, as it turns out.
By week.
Hey, Joe. Paul Schwartz with the New York Post.
Hey, Paul.
Clearly, the Giants were very impressed with your work with two great coaches, Saban and Belichick. And that's a great thing on a resume. How are you different from them? The big thing everyone wants to know is, you're not those guys. How are you your own man?
Well,
goes to the water.
I think when you work with anybody, you try to absorb as much as you can from them. And you're going to always have the opportunity to learn lessons if you pay attention and are willing to learn something new. I work for two great coaches, Coach Belichick and Coach Saban. There wasn't a day I went to work that I didn't come home with a full new education. And I knew fully every day that there were coaches out there that would pay thousands of dollars to sit in a staff meeting and just hear the wisdom they were saying on a daily basis. I'd like to think I wasn't foolish enough to squander that. Both have a very unique style about them. both have a world of knowledge. Okay. Both have a lot of the same philosophical views and a lot of the same values. What I learned from Coach Saban was not an individual lesson. What I learned from Coach Saban was it's important to address everybody, not only on the what they have to do, but how it should look, what we're going to do to get there, and why it's important. And what you find out when you're coaching players, they're not robots. And if they understand what the end result's supposed to look like and why it's important, normally those players are going to take the principles that you instilled in them and in the game make a player's adjustment. And you're going to learn more from the players than they are as a coach because they're going to find a better way to do it in the heat of the moment with a certain adjustment.
That definitely did not happen either. Again, a lot of this is word salad. And maybe I was just so pumped up that we had gotten rid of Pat Shermer and it was something new or whatever. Because, and again, obviously hindsight being 2020, and I know what Joe Judge was for the Giants and how bad they looked while he was there. We were the clown show, which I'm going to react to that. Somebody asked me to react to that too. I'll react to that tomorrow probably. But what this organization became under Joe Judge, I guess I was just so happy for a change that this guy got me, because listening to this now, looking at it back now, I'm like, what the hell did I see in this guy? I guess it's kind of like a relationship. You start a new relationship with somebody and it's all hunky dory and you got the honeymoon phase and then you end up breaking up with them and you turn around and like, what the hell did I see in that person? I guess that's kind of what's going on here, watching this back.
And as a coach, you have to have your eyes open enough to understand they're making the correct adjustment. You have to find another way to teach it in the future to give multiple options. That's what I learned from Coach Saban, and that applied across the board. That was whether you're dealing with a person, okay, a player in recruiting, developing a player on the field, or schematics in a game. You better make sure everyone knows the full picture of what you're looking for. And what I learned from Coach Belichick was real simple. Be flexible within your personnel. Don't try to shove round pegs into square holes. Figure out what you have. Let them play to their strengths.
See, I liked that answer too.
Don't sit in a meeting and tell me what you don't have in a player. Don't tell me they can't do a certain thing. Tell me what they can do. And then we'll figure out as coaches, because that's our job, how we can use that.
See, I love that answer too. That was a big one for me. Don't tell me what they can't do. Tell me what they can do. Obviously, they couldn't do much, or Joe Judge didn't know what the hell they could do because they didn't do much of anything.
That's our responsibility. Everybody has something they can do. How many cast-offs you see around the league that end up on another team? Everyone says, wow, how'd they get that out of them? Maybe they just weren't closing their eyes to what they could do. Okay.
You need look no further than Isaiah Hodgins coming to the Giants and what he meant to us this past year. And we was kind of, just meandering in Buffalo.
We have to, as a coaching staff, when we get assembled, we have to make sure we're sitting down, we're patient with our players, we fully evaluate them, we find out what they can do to be an asset, and that we're not foolish enough to not use that.
Joe, Daryl Slater from the Newark Star Ledger. A lot of fans looked at this hire and they regard you as not a prominent name. There were other prominent names that a lot of fans out there wanted, maybe more so than you. So what do you think of the notion? What do you say to the notion that you were not the preferred choice for a lot of the public, a lot of the Giants fans?
To be completely honest with you, I'm not really concerned about whoever interviewed for this job. All I'm concerned about is the opportunity I have in front of me and what I have to do going forward. And I'm going to tell my players the same thing. It doesn't matter how you got there. It doesn't matter how high profile you may be or may not be. It's what you do on a daily basis. You're in a position, earn it. Earn it every day. Okay. And I appreciate the opportunity. I'm working every day to earn it. And our players have to do the same thing. The best players will play. I don't care where you got drafted. I don't care if you're an undrafted free agent. I don't care if you're old, young, traded, whatever you got there for. Everybody will have an opportunity every day to compete for a job on our roster. Every day. And if you want to be on the field, be the best player. Outwork the guy in front of you.
See, I liked that answer too. But again, I don't think that ever actually happened.
Prove your value to us. Show you can handle the job. And we're going to put you on the field and give you an opportunity.
Matt Rule is definitely a guy that I know a lot of Giants fans are interested in. Wink Martindale also interviewed for this position as well.
Hey, Joe. Kim Jones from NFL
Hey, Kim.
Network. Hi. Culture, I completely concede, is an overused word, but I don't know another better word to use in this
Right.
example. When you look at taking over the New York Giants, what culture do you want to have in the locker room, and how will you go about making sure that that is delivered?
The only culture we're going to have in that building, period, is a winning culture. And what that means is everybody comes to work every day, regardless of how they feel, and puts the team first, period. Whatever you have going on outside the building, you're sick, you're a little bit of pain, your discomfort, You're upset. You're mad. You put all that aside.
See, now, again, watching this back, he totally contradicted himself because at the very beginning of this, he said they're not robots. He said you have to show empathy. They're humans. And here he's saying if you're mad, you're sad, you don't feel good, you got a little bit of pain, you put it aside. You put everything aside. You go in there and play football. That's not what a human being does. You just talked about, 10 minutes ago, you talked about being empathetic to the player. And now you're talking about, well, I don't really give a shit what's going on. And that's what happened with Coach Coughlin in the beginning of his tenure. He didn't care about the players. Once he started caring about the players, they won a couple of Super Bowls. So definitely something I missed the first time I watched this thing 3 years ago.
You come in, you put the team first. We're going to ask our players at times to do things that necessarily may not be what they have in mind for themselves. But if it's best for the team, they have to be willing to go forward with it because that's what a winning culture is.
Hi, Coach. Patricia Traina. Thank you for taking my question.
Patty!
You've mentioned teaching a lot, and I know you have a background in teaching. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on how you plan to teach this team how to win, what you look for in teachers and the like?
Well, I'd say
No, it doesn't surprise me that Patty asks the best question.
teaching is just to inspire learning. And I think what we have to do is we have to identify how our players learn. Everybody learns different. Okay. Everyone learns different. We have to make sure that when we teach, we hit the full spectrum of students in the classroom, the full spectrum of our players. We can't just teach in an old school way or a certain way. We have to find whatever's helpful for these guys to be able to take the information and apply it on the field. Now, whether that may be old school lecture for some guys, whether that's more visual evidence through tape for other guys, or maybe that's on their feet with walkthroughs for some others. We're going to do as much as what's necessary to make sure we're checking the box on every guy. And as a coaching staff, I expect our coaches to know who's up to speed on what. Don't tell me you taught the whole room and one guy screwed it up. I want to know what you did to hit that guy. You figure out what he's a little behind on, and then you make up the difference. Figure it out. That's your job. So to me, a teacher is, we talk about no child left behind, but I'm telling you right now, if you're in our locker room, you're going to get coached. We're not leaving anybody behind right here. Okay. So I want people who are going to, treat the player as a person, find out what makes them tick, what inspires their learning, and make sure we accomplish it every day.
Hi, Tara Sullivan from the Boston Globe. We know about the endorsement that Coach Belichick gave ownership here about you. I'm curious, I guess it's sort of twofold, but one, what advice he had for you, if you consulted with him, how that went. And I would like just kind of a flip side of all the things on your resume, you haven't actually been a head coach, if I'm correct.
You're absolutely correct.
Tara Sullivan didn't know that Joe Judge had never been a head coach? Isn't that the media's job to know that? Do you not practice fundamentals, Tara? Were you not coachable? Did you not learn anything? How do you not know that? How do you not know that?
Correct on that.
So just
I've
kind
been
of
a kindergarten PE teacher. I've not been a head coach.
Just how you
He taught the Giants like a kindergarten PE teacher. We look like a kindergarten PE class.
sort of sold them on filling that absence on the resume, if you will, how you convinced them you were ready to be a head coach. But
Okay,
first
so
about Belichick.
I'll start with the first one, the question about Coach Belichick in terms of advice. I'm going to be honest with you. The only advice I really sought from him as far as this opportunity, he told me just be yourself. And that's all I know how to be. I think one of the things people ask me a lot is you've worked for Coach Saban, Coach Belichick, what makes you different? Look, I'm myself. I'm going to be myself every time. If I'm anything else, everyone's going to see straight through it. And if you lie to the team, you're going to lose the team immediately.
So you know what? He lied in this press conference. And I'm sure that the team heard this and they thought this and he lied to them and they saw right through it. They played as such.
I'm going to always be myself. And that's a little bit different than other people. And that's fine.
Well, everybody's themselves. Everybody's always different than somebody else.
I'm not trying to emulate anyone I've ever worked for. I'm trying to take what I've learned from them and what matches up with my belief structure and do it in my own personality.
There's nothing wrong with emulating people that are successful. I mean, you can't be that person, but you should look at, I don't care what you're doing in life. You should look at somebody that's where you want to be. And you should try to emulate them. You should try to figure out exactly how they got there. And I'm not saying you need to do exactly what they do. You need to do it your own way. But you should not just go, I don't care that, Belichick won 6 Super Bowls and, 2 and then 2 more as a defense, as a head coach. He won 6 Super Bowls and 2 more as a defensive coordinator with the Giants. So I'm not going to emulate him. I'm just going to do my own thing. Well, you should have emulated Coach Belichick. You don't need to be Coach Belichick, but you should emulate a guy like that.
Okay. The second part of the question, as far as being a head coach, you can't fabricate that experience. And as a young head coach, I'm going to lean on Dave Gettleman. I'm going to lean on the assistants I hire. I'm going to lean on having the right people in the building to fill in some of the blanks that I may have.
Now, you leaned on them a little bit too much. They were weak, and you toppled right over, Joe.
I'm about transparency, transparency and honesty. So I need men in my building who are willing to walk into my office and tell me the truth. And we can be on the same page. Now, we may have some disagreements at times. We're going to walk out in that field with those players and all have the same vision, same voice. We're on the same page. Relative to how I would handle a team, I can tell you what the experience I've had, I feel prepares me as being a head coach. Number one, from a personnel standpoint, I talked earlier, I've had to evaluate everybody for the draft. I have to know who the players in the locker room are, not just as an athlete in that regard, but personally. Because as a special teams coach, it's not just point and click and say, go do it. There's a lot of recruiting that happens at certain times. And you have to find out how every player ticks. And everyone responds differently at different times. Now, you've got your core guys that show up to work and they know that's how they, pay their light bill and they're going to do it every day, whatever. But there comes a time you may have to go ahead and go to the starting quarterback and say, hey, buddy, I need you to be the holder this week because we have an issue with an injury. You may have to go to a guy who's a starting linebacker and say, I need you to start on punt team for me this week. You haven't done it since training camp, but we need you. Or you have to go to a guy in the middle of a game and tell him he now has to cover a kick on kickoff. The thing is, you have to get to those people early on and develop a relationship with them, a relationship with the entire team to have them trust you, to know that you have their best interest at hand and the team's best interest at hand. So when you come to them and you ask them to perform a task, they trust you that what you're asking them to do is going to benefit them individually and as a team collectively.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, did they practice this stuff? Again, you can say all these things about we're going to do this and we're going to do that, but did you actually practice that stuff? Did you actually go up to one of the linebackers, like a Lorenzo Carter per se at the time, and say, hey, you're going to have to cover punts? Did you actually do that?
Okay. Along with that, look, I've had the experience and it's been beneficial. I get to stand in front of the room every day and coach every player. Every player. When we're at 90, it's all 90. When we're at 53, it's 53 plus the 10 on practice squad. Okay. So in different avenues, I've been able to address the team every day. And again, you can't address the team all in one message. You have to make sure you're hitting everybody in the room. So you gain the experience of what the pulse of the team is and what makes them tick. You're not always addressing them now after wins. A lot of times you got to walk in after a tough loss.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times, there was a lot of times. He's like, a lot of times you got to walk in after a tough loss. Well, he was right about that. A lot of times you walk in after a loss. A lot.
A lot of times you got to walk in after a tough loss where maybe your unit didn't play as well as it should have. And
every week.
You have to grab the attention of those players and not only tell them how we have to correct what was wrong, but why they have to trust you going forward.
Yeah. I wonder what he said to the players. Say, oh, you got to trust me going forward. We're almost there. We're going to run back-to-back quarterback sneaks on the 4-yard line. We have minus 10 yards passing against the Bears. You get blown out every game and just go out meekly every game and not even put up a fight. And we're going to be extremely passive.
Okay. So there's been a lot of experience through the years of having to do that on a daily basis. Special teams, one thing you got to manage is time. Another thing is people. As a head.
Oh, God, was he the worst at managing time? And our special teams was the worst in football under a special teams coordinator. Go figure that out.
Coach, there's the two main things you have to manage, time and people. So I've had experience preparing me for that. I don't have all the answers. I'm not preparing to sit here and tell you a lie like I have all the answers. But I am telling you, I'll find out the ones I don't know and make sure by the time we give them to the players, they're the right ones.
Hey, Joe. Jordan Raanan from ESPN. Sort of to build off that a little bit, I'm wondering, this was obviously a goal of yours to become a head coach. So
yes.
Was there any?
No, it wasn't, Jordan. It's nobody's goal to ever become a head coach. You get into football as a coach. Your goal is never to become a head coach. Jordan Raanan, people. Jordan Raanan or Raanan or whatever he said his name was.
Anything specific you did to prepare for this? And how much did you maybe talk about being a head coach with Bill to sort of learn how to become a head coach in the process?
I think Bill understood that I had a desire to be a head coach because of my involvement overall in a complete team. I never talked about being a head coach or walked around and advertised as a specific goal. To be completely honest with you, I didn't have a goal this year specifically right now of having to be a head coach right now. This opportunity was very unique. When I received the call from the Giants that they would like to interview me, that was very exciting. There's 32 teams in this league. That's not a lot. The reality is there's very few others who have a chance of winning.
That I believe. I do believe that he was surprised that he got a head coaching job. Because to me, again, listening back to this now, sounded like he wasn't prepared to be a head coach. And I don't think he was. Like I said, maybe someday Joe Judge does figure it out and he does become a head coach and a decent one. But again, the timing was just very wrong here.
The reality of that is there's very few of those that have a chance of winning that have tradition and history behind them. I don't take this lightly. There's not 32 great programs in this league. The truth is the Giants are one of the top.
Well, they weren't one of the top when you took over, and they only got worse when you were there.
Okay. And that's what makes this job intriguing.
Hi, Joe. Joe, Pat Leonard from the New York Daily News.
Does Jordan and Pat, is there like a certain pecking order here? When I did the one with Daboll, it was Jordan and Pat Leonard asking about Saquon Barkley when Coach Daboll said, don't ask about Saquon Barkley.
Hey, Pat.
Along those lines, in this interview, was there a moment for you where it clicked that your vision and the Giants ownership's and front office's vision aligned? And then I want to know,
how would that happen during this interview? Wouldn't that during this? Oh, maybe he's talking about the interview for the head coaching job. I misunderstood.
what was it like for you in the morning when you find out you're getting the job? Where were you? You know, how did you feel at that moment? Who were you with, et cetera?
I'll go backwards on that. So when I received the phone call and Mr. Mayor offered me the job, it was very exciting. It was very humbling. I was actually sitting in my office in Gillette Stadium at the time. I had returned the night before from the interview, and I basically went the next day to just resume work like I would normally do and make sure I was getting prepared for what was coming up next. It was very humbling. It was very humbling. I think you get past the initial wave of excitement, and then you realize the task at hand you have, and you realize that it's time to go to work. Okay. And there's people depending on you. And that's a humbling feeling that you have to show up every day and do your absolute best because everyone's depending on you to do your absolute best. Anything less won't be acceptable.
Yeah. So see, this is the problem. Now, either he didn't do his absolute best or his absolute best was absolutely terrible. And again, man, watch us back. Joe Judge was a crappy head coach, and Lord knows I ripped him. And I wish I was doing these reactions during his post games because those would have been hilarious. But yeah, it's not like I think Joe Judge is a bad guy or anything. He was just a bad coach.
Could you repeat the first part of the question again?
First part was there a moment in the interview
when
the visions aligned?
Without going into too many details about the specific interview, I would say when we spoke about discipline on the team, and that's something very important to me. You know, I think you need to have the fundamental foundation of discipline on your team that you hold players accountable. And it's important to have good people in your locker room. It's a family business for our ownership, and it's a family business for myself. You know, my children have all been born. I've been in this business. Knowing that your passion is football, that your desire to win is what you truly love, and that benefits your family, and you're representing something bigger than yourself. That moment right there was when it really clicked that this is where I belong or where I want to be.
Joe Misery, Pix 11 News. I'm curious, you just mentioned your family there. What was their reaction, specifically your wife and kids, when you got the job and coming to New York?
Very exciting. They were very excited. I've got a 14-year-old who stays as current as he can on everything. So he's already looking to make GM moves and stuff. Sorry, Mr. Gettleman. He's
maybe his kid was making GM moves. Might have been done better than get him when it came to contracts and trades.
He's telling me about the roster when I come home and things we could do and stuff. And I've got an 11-year-old who, was kind of speechless when we told him at school. We pulled him out of class and let him know. He could have been more excited. I've got a 9-year-old back there, Emma Riley, and she's got a gymnastics meet in Manhattan in a few weeks, right, Emma? Yeah, a few weeks. And so she's been talking about that all fall. So now that she gets to have her meet, but it's also her new home, that's a little bit extra special for her. And we haven't really broke the news yet to Ella that this means she has to move, but she's very excited to be part of the Giants.
Joe, Tom Canavan with the AP. When you talked about taking the job, you said you want to be old school. Was that the way you were brought up? Or was that something that, you learned from Belichick and Saban? Because it sounds very much like it's Parcells and Coughlin.
You ever see that poster that says everything I need to learn, I learned in kindergarten? It's talking about like sharing and telling the truth and being polite and all that stuff.
And for Joe Judge, it was eating paste. I can't help it.
The thing I really learned from the great coaches I worked for later in my career was really that they reinforced everything I learned early in my career, that it's really the basics that carry over.
The problem is they couldn't even execute the basics. That was the issue with Joe Judge's team. They could not execute the basics, or in his terms, the fundamentals, the word that he loves to use. They couldn't execute either one of them.
Some minutia that gets caught up when you get kind of going through the
Minutia, nice word, Joe.
flow of things. Everyone thinks there's some guru out there with a magical scheme. Everyone thinks there's some shortcut to being good. But everything I learned from Coach Belichick and Coach Saban reinforced on a daily basis that it's the fundamentals.
There's the word. There's the word. It's almost like I knew it was coming.
You know, you don't build the Empire State Building by washing the windows. You build it with the foundation and work it on up. You know, so whatever your goal is at hand, you can put that in the distance and start working day by day, take a step forward.
See, it was a good answer. I liked that answer.
Hey, Joe.
Hey.
Art Stapleton from the Bergen Record and USA Today. You hear coaches talk about how this is a timing business, and sometimes you take an opportunity and maybe it's a year too soon or a year too late. Why is the timing right for you now to be standing here as the new head coach of the Giants?
Because I don't think he was going to turn down the job. He would have been a fool to turn down the job. And get the experience, if nothing else.
The thing that's relative to me on this is the opportunity to be with the New York Giants. That's it. The time is now, and that's the only time that's relevant to me.
Coach, it's Ralph Vacchiano from SNY. I know you said you haven't studied all the players yet. You want to get into that, but obviously you know a little bit about the roster, and you know that there hasn't been a lot of winning around here recently.
Well, that continued.
How quickly do you think you can turn this around? How big a job is it to get this franchise back on a winning track?
I think that was Ralph Vecchio. That was actually a really good question. It's the first person that actually kind of asked him what his plan was for the Giants.
Well, look, to try to get any team in this league to win is a tough job. They're all tough jobs. Every team's good. They're coached well. They have talent. There's a lot of parity in this league.
Every team's good. Well, ours wasn't.
Structured and built that way.
Neither were the Jets.
So every job in this league has a tough job every week trying to get a win. I'm not into making predictions about wins. I'm a process-built guy. You focus on the process at hand. You worry about the steps in place you have to execute to get to the end result. I'm not going to circle a number on my board and say we have to get to X number of wins to be successful. I'm worried about when these guys walk in the building in mid-April, what we have to do with them on day one to get them working in the right direction to build on the ground up.
Hey, Joe, Dave Waldstein, New York Times. A big part of your job will be dealing with reporters and media, especially.
And they forgot to mention Baddog and Entertainer and all the other Giants content creators out there. He wasn't expecting me.
The answering questions
I know you watch, Joe. You're not watching this, Joe, but I know you're watching. We'll talk about your clown show interview tomorrow.
after games. And just to kind of kickstart that process, I'm just curious in the last game, what went into the decision not to have someone returning that last punt?
I'm not going to get into any specific decisions on schematics. I can assure you this was discussions we had before the game, and we called it according to what we thought gave our team the best opportunity to win. I appreciate the question. At this point, I'm really looking forward to everything we're doing here with the New York Giants.
I don't know what that's in reference to. There must have been a punt returner or something with New England, and I don't remember that.
That's a question that's probably better fit for Foxborough.
In other words, you had to go look at the tape.
Zach Rosenblatt, NJ.com. You mentioned something about the things you learn in kindergarten that stay with you. What did you actually learn from teaching kindergarten?
Don't eat the paste.
All right.
My kid's in kindergarten right now.
So when I get done being a GA at Mississippi State, which when you're a GA, it's basically volunteering to be tortured. And it's the best experience you can ever have. I washed cars. I got coffee. I built play sets. I did everything I could do. And on top of that, I got to coach football and learn. And they kind of paid.
He got coffee for the kindergartners? Washed their cars? What are you talking about, Joe?
Paid me $700 a month, which didn't cover the rent even in Mississippi. All right. So what I learned coaching PE, okay, for 3 days in West Point School District was the patience you have to have with children, okay, that I had I think it was 5 or 6 classes a day of kindergarten PE in a classroom. It was
Kindergarten P. I think he meant kindergarten PE, but it says kindergarten P, and we all know kindergartners have accidents now and again. It's just kind of funny.
wasn't a gymnasium. It was a classroom. And these kids would come in, and I figured out that I had to have an organized plan with these kids that covered the full 60 minutes I had them. And if I let any detail in that plan go to waste, it was going to be chaos. Okay.
That's right. Coach up the 5-year-olds, Joe. They probably didn't execute either.
I mean, I had kids, dancing on the windowsills. I had kids, peeing themselves. I had kids doing everything, but I figured out that you have to keep them busy.
I think Joe peed himself a few times too. Joe fit right in with the kindergartners. Let's face it. Come on, Joe. Let's be real. You drink Coors Light.
To be detailed and prepared on the front end.
You got to be detailed. Yes, detailed and prepared about teaching PE to 5-year-olds.
To make sure that regardless of who your audience is, or
maybe he coached the Giants like he was coaching the 5-year-olds, because that's what it seems like to me.
Who your classroom is.
They were dancing on the windowsills, probably peeing themselves, fumbling, stumbling, bumbling all around, losing game. It was a comedy of horrors.
You have to have something.
And the toilet paper came in handy for the pee, mind you.
To keep them busy, okay, and occupied mentally and stimulated that they want to participate in what you're trying to accomplish. Good. Thank you very much, guys.
Hey, Giants fan.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Saquon, I have a feeling you're going to be a Giant. I guess the Giants did put the contract back on the table. I'll talk more about that. I might do a hangout later tonight. This video is very long. So again, I appreciate you. If you made it 47 minutes, you're unbelievable. But that is the press conference for Joe Judge. And like I said, I'll be doing a lot of reactions to that. I will react to his clown show one. And I might go through some more of them just to kind of, again, go back and try to hear what I didn't hear the first time around. But so again, man, that's all I got in this video. Thank you for watching. We will see you next time. It is the Bad Diggity Dizzle, and I'm out. Peace.